Hello, my name is Bob Tribe, and welcome to Valley to Vietnam. Valley to Vietnam is a joint effort between the Sacramento Public Library and the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 500. It is our intent to trace the arc of experience between Sacramento and Vietnam for our local Vietnam vets. Today, our guest is Dan, who was a pilot in the Air Force. Total time, both active and reserve duty, was 24 years.
Correct.
And you were in Vietnam in 1968,
69.
68, 69. Well, Dan, we'll start off with your beginnings, and you were born in Petaluma.
Petaluma, California, where my mother was born also.
Okay.
Some X number of years ahead of me.
And your mom and dad were both in the service.
Yes. My father joined the Navy from the East Coast for World War II, and then my mother joined the Waves, as they're called.
Right.
And they met in Southern California, actually in San Diego area. They were married, and then my father went off to the South Pacific, flew TBFs in the island hopping as they went north out of Australia to eventually beat the Japanese.
You know, that's interesting. I guess I forgot when we did the audio interview that your father was a pilot also. So
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So did you think about being a Navy pilot rather than going into the Army or the Air Force?
Air Force.
Sorry,
Yes,
get
that's
used
right.
to
Yes,
thinking
yeah.
World War II.
The Army Air Corps.
Yeah.
No. Actually, when it came down to it, I applied to both
Oh,
the
okay.
Air Force and the Navy for pilot training. And the Air Force came back faster than the Navy did.
Okay.
After I had accepted for the Air Force, about a week later, the Navy said, "Hey, come on over."
Oh.
Sorry.
Yeah. I wonder what you would have been flying then if you'd gone into the Navy.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
No.
Because it was a different sort of mission. Yeah.
Different missions and the the aircraft carriers and all the stuff that goes into it.
Right.
I'm not saying that the Navy's any better than the Air Force, but to be a aircraft carrier pilot, a little different.
Yeah.
A little different set.
Well, we all feel that the branch of the service we were in was the best.
That's true.
I get Marines in here, and oh my gosh. Anyway, so you moved to Sacramento when you're at a very early age.
It's about 4 or 5, something like that, I believe.
Okay, so late 40s, you're moving to Sacramento, and you went to a series of different schools here.
Yeah, I started off downtown, and we moved to Arden Park, and from there I went to Arden School, Marymount, back to Arden, and 4 years at El Camino, where I met you.
Yes, we met something close to, 58 years ago or something.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and we were in the same class together at El Camino, graduated in 1961.
That's us, exactly.
Okay. And we just talked about some of the places that we would hang out. You and I were talking about that earlier, but
yes.
When
the Village Theater on Saturday afternoons.
Village Theater on Fulton Avenue near Marconi.
Exactly.
Yeah, closest theater where we'd see movies.
And when it came time, Mel's Drive-In downtown.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the way the downtown was set up then was that K Street was a full street, and you drove west on K, and then you could come back on either L or J. They both headed east. And
make the loop.
Yeah, make the loop. You'd have people come down there with their hot rods and race.
Yeah, race for one block or another.
You try to meet girls from other schools, because there's a lot of McClatchy and Sacramento High girls down there, and the Catholic, all girls schools, Loretto. And Mel's was at 19th and J.
That's right next to the railroad track there.
Yeah, which is now a Starbucks and Noah's Bagels and all that, but that was the real hangout.
That was the hangout.
Yeah. So you finished at El Camino in 1961.
I spent 2 years at American River Junior College,
right,
as it was at the time.
Right.
From there, I went down to California Lutheran College in Thousand Oaks.
Okay, that's in Ventura County?
It is, just a little bit north of LA.
Okay.
Graduated from there in '65, and eventually I got into the, well, actually, I spent one semester at the Luther Seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Oh, really?
in the fall of '65, and then I got into the Air Force in '66.
So were you going to be a minister pilot or what?
Just a minister at the time,
Okay.
and one thing led to another, and I decided that that probably was not the life for me at the time.
Did you tell me your brother became a minister?
My brother is minister, yes.
With the Lutheran?
Lutheran. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Here in Sacramento?
He was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about all this pilot training. It's pretty intense. There's a lot of different facets of it.
Yeah. Well, out of OTS, I went to
That's officer training school.
officer training school.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. I love acronyms.
That's it.
Yeah.
So went to outside of Phoenix, Arizona, and to Williams Air Force Base,
Uh-huh.
and it's called the year of 53 weeks because from the time you show up to the time you graduate, it's 53 weeks, but you go through all your flight training.
Okay.
Start off with a Cessna, just a little 172 type thing for 30 hours, and then you move into the T-37,
Uh-huh.
which is a twin-engine jet, and usually there for about 90 hours, and then 120 hours in the T-38. So you come out of there with about, what's that, 240 hours, I guess, of pilot time. And really, by that time, you're a really accomplished pilot if you get through all those.
And what's the difference between that first jet and the second jet?
A lot.
Yeah.
T-37 was a little subsonic trainer,
Uh-huh.
and you sat side by side
Okay.
with the instructor.
Uh-huh.
The T-38 was then supersonic. You could go Mach 1 plus, and you sat tandem,
Okay.
one in front, one in back.
Okay.
Usually the instructor was behind in the second seat, and so that the student was up the front, unless you were doing instrument work, in which case the instructor was up front, and the student was in the back, and they actually pull a hood over so that you could not see outside.
Oh, okay.
And then he was, they call it safety pilot, but
Yeah.
he'd get you airborne because you can't really see the runway when you got that. He'd make sure you got airborne, and once you got airborne, it was all instrument work
Yeah.
till you landed.
And just digressing a bit, in Amarillo at Lackland at Officer Training School, was preceded going to Phoenix or what?
OTS, Officer Training School, was at Lackland, which is in San Antonio.
Lackland, yeah, San
Yeah.
Antonio.
Yeah, I was there for 10 weeks, 12 weeks.
Yeah, and then you're just learning the
Second
basics of
lieutenant.
being an officer.
Yeah, a little
Yeah.
second lieutenant. And
Right. Okay. So then you spend the year in sort of flight training.
Right.
And
in Arizona.
What's next after that?
In the spring of would have been '68. Then I went to Hurlburt Field in Florida
Okay.
and learned how to fly the 123.
They're still flying 123s.
There are a few out there, but I don't
Yeah.
know that not in the military, not in the Air Force,
Okay.
not in our Air Force. It might be throughout the world. There might be some more flying.
And they look a lot like C-130s, except they have 2 engines rather than 4? Is that
Correct.
it?
Yeah, and they're
Okay.
2-engine recip as compared to the 4-engine turboprop of a C-130.
Okay. And recip means what?
Reciprocating engines, just
Okay.
it's obviously not jet, not turbojet. It's
Yeah.
pistons.
Right. Okay. And you spent how long there then learning the 123?
Oh, she was maybe 2.5, 3 months.
Yeah.
Because by the time I left for Vietnam, it was last part of June of '68.
Uh-huh. And then you go to Castle.
No.
That was later?
That was much later.
Oh, okay.
No.
That was
But-
before you went to Thailand then, maybe.
Well, I went to 123s, and I went to Vietnam
Okay.
and flew for a year in Vietnam. Then when I came back out of that, I went to Castle and trained in the 135, the KC-135.
Is that like a radar plane or something?
No, this was the aerial tanker.
Oh, aerial tanker. Okay.
Yeah.
Because isn't there a 130 something that's like with all the things on it, all the radar stuff, and you see?
I think of the E3.
Okay.
I don't know of a.
Did they used to fly
100
those
did.
out of here, out of like
That was
Cleland or something?
EC-121s?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
EC-121. That was a 4-engine turboprop.
Okay.
And they were out here at McClellan, yes.
Yeah. All right.
No, I never flew one of those.
Okay. Let's talk about Vietnam. You arrived in Vietnam.
Actually, in July 5th or 6th of 68.
68? Okay. I thought you were there in 67.
No, 68, 69.
Okay. I got you. And so you
When I first got there in 123s, I was assigned to Benoit Air Base.
Near Saigon.
Near Saigon, just a little bit northeast. And that outfit is Agent Orange sprayers. And when I first got in country, they like to send the guys up to, in this case, Phan, where I flew out for about a month, maybe 6 weeks, flying we called trash hauling.
Right.
In a 123, we'd go anywhere throughout in the area that would suit us. There's lots of different places where they had the trash hauling 123s, but we would haul anything that needed to be hauled that day, whether it was troops or food or ammunition, cargo, fuel bladder. They put a big bladder into 123, and we'd put fuel in it, take it out to some forward operating site, and they'd defuel us from there, and that would be available for the helicopters.
Okay. So trash hauling didn't mean hauling trash.
No.
It just means whatever they gave you that
Whatever
day.
they gave you that day.
Yeah, okay. And
did that for about, like I say, a month and a half or something, and then went back down to Benoit and started flying the Agent Orange missions.
And the Agent Orange basically was a defoliant.
Correct.
And the whole idea was a lot of the troops were getting ambushed because of the thick jungle.
Yes.
So the idea was to take out the cover for the enemy.
That's right. Take out the cover for them, and also to expose their bases.
Right.
We'd spray in 3 or 4 ship flights where we have at least 3 123s up to 6, sometimes more, very rarely, but because that would get a little bit unwieldy. And we'd spray the alongside the roads, lines of communications, as some people call it.
Along the rivers too?
Along the rivers.
Yeah.
And then there's obviously fields that we would spray also where they thought that the enemy was hiding out and had camps. And we'd go in and spray that. And usually within 3 to 4 weeks, the leaves would drop, and you could see down to the ground.
Yeah. And like for a special forces camp that needed an airstrip, you might defoliate there, and so that they could put in a strip so they could be resupplied or whatever.
Well, that wouldn't actually kill. The tree would still be there. You'd have to cut the trees down somehow.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But if they had a special forces camp with a strip there, we would spray either side of the strip so that the bad guys couldn't hide in the trees that close and move them out further and further.
Sure. And you'd have to fly very low for these spray missions, I would
We
assume.
sprayed at 100 feet off the ground.
Wow.
And 120 knots, so we were pretty good targets.
So you'd come back and you'd find holes all through the aircraft, or what?
Not every time, but a lot of times.
Yeah, right.
There was quite a few holes in the aircraft, and over a period of time, most of the holes were in the back third. Somehow, they never decided to lead us.
Right.
They were just shooting at you straight.
Yeah.
And
thinking the bullets are fast.
Yeah.
When we get up there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Not quite fast enough.
Yeah.
And it depends on the angle and everything else that goes with it, but
Right.
most of our hits were all in the back third of the airplane.
Sure.
Obviously, we had some up in the front. Stories of guys that never actually took a bullet, but saw bullets in the cockpit.
And there was some sort of controversy later about Agent Orange. Of course, you guys didn't know that at the time. Nobody seemed to know, except maybe Dow Chemical. I don't know if they knew or not, but
yeah.
But there was possible effects from it.
Yes, there's in Vietnam. I guess there's still, I won't say still, but there was a period of time there where they had a lot of birth defects.
Yeah.
And such.
Right.
Growing up.
Yeah, and I don't blame you or anybody else that was spraying the stuff.
I hear you.
You know, I'd blame Dow if they knew, but I don't even know that. Who knows, you know, but, or Monsanto, I guess. So, but anyway, you guys were popular with the troops. Because
very popular, yes.
They were getting fewer ambushes, they were, you know.
If you went into an Army bar, we had purple scarves, which is a kind of color code, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
You know, insignia of us. It was hard to buy a drink for us. They would be buying the drinks for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were there for a year, and
yes.
You came back later, not specifically to Vietnam, but tell me a little bit about that.
Right. Out of Vietnam, I went to a KC-135 outfit in Ohio, just south of Columbus, Ohio. It was called Lockbourne Air Force Base at the time. Now it's called Rickenbacker, after Eddie.
Nice.
But we would rotate over to Thailand and fly out of Utapao Air Base and refuel the fighters.
In the air?
Oh yeah, when they were going up north to North Vietnam, or even sometimes they stay in the south and do their different missions. But
that's going to be kind of tricky. Is that as hard as it looks when you watch that?
Not from where I sit. That's the receiver. The receiver might have a little more trouble with that. And actually, in the fighters, those guys, it was almost second nature to them after a short period of time.
Right.
They come in there and hook up just really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were on active duty for how long?
About 7 years.
Okay.
Just a little bit over 7 years. I got out of active duty after flying the 123 and the 135s. And then a little later I got into the reserves, got a 2-year ground assignment, and then I got into flying 141s, C-141s, out of Travis Air Force Base, where I retired eventually.
I think I mentioned to you that, you know, after going to jump school and jumping out of C-119s, the main planes we jumped out of were 123s. And I think my second to last jump was out of a jet. It was a 141.
Right.
And what a unique experience that was, where with the 123 we'd take off with the side doors open. They'd have JATO assist to get you off. I don't know if we were just chubby paratroopers. I don't think anybody was heavy, you know, in that outfit. But so as a jump master, you'd be screaming these jump commands. And with the 141, the doors are down, and you're in this jet, and it's like you're in a commercial airliner, and the jump master says on a little microphone, get ready.
Yeah, everybody got ready.
Look up. And imagine you have to go faster in the jet when you're jumping people out of them.
You know, I never did any kind of airdrops in the 141, so I'm not sure. But put the flaps down and you can go at a lower speed. A little bit, you know, obviously there's a speed commensurate with jumpers.
Right.
And I really have no idea what that would be. But
and these little, on the 141, these shields that come out in front of the doors, just because there'd be so much.
Air deflectors.
Yeah, so much air going by. But it was a different experience. So once you got out, did you start flying commercially? Or
yes, eventually I did. I flew commercially for outfit called Transamerica, where I actually did fly C-130s, you know, civilian version of the C-130.
Right.
And
where was this?
Actually, I started. I was assigned out of New York, but I flew anywhere, and some of the places I flew included South America and Africa. I flew a lot of food relief in Ethiopia back in the time frame when that first came out, and I'm going to have to take a while to figure out the years of that. But
well, Africa,
mid-80s.
Africa always needed food someplace, that's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
So you did that for a certain period of time?
I flew for for Transamerica for about 2 years, and they went out of the airplane business, put it that way. And eventually I got hired by the old PSA, Pacific Southwest Airways here on the West Coast, which was bought by U.S. Airways. And U.S. Airways, they changed their name over a period of time.
Right.
And I retired from that at my age 60.
Okay.
And
I flew on those PSAs almost weekly back in the late 70s or
I'm
so.
sure.
Yeah.
Some people called it the poor starving airline, poor starving students, poor students airline. That's what it was.
Attractive stewardesses, though. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so what's the next stop for you after this?
Well, at age 60, I had to retire. This was
Right.
the FAA changed that rule after I retired to 65. But I am now a C-17 simulator instructor down at Travis Air Force Base. So I stayed in the airline mode or aircraft mode business, and I've been doing that for about 10 years now.
Now, did you fly for other airlines besides Transamerica?
No, Transamerica and then the PSA/US Air.
Okay.
Just the two.
Right. The C-17, how does that compare to a 141?
It replaced the 141, and it will carry more and bigger troops, cargo, whatever. It's bigger on the interior, so it can haul a larger piece of equipment, whatever, a tank or whatever, than the 141 could.
And when you see these photos of all these troops like coming back from overseas, the current, photos, and it shows the interior of the aircraft and all these troops in there, is that in a C-17 or is that?
Probably.
Yeah,
I would think that's
a
a C-17.
big aircraft.
It is, and I couldn't tell you exact number of how many they haul that way, but the seats on the outside, and they put a row of seats down the middle that face both ways.
Yeah.
So the guys' knees are all knocking against each other.
Okay. Yeah.
And they put quite a few guys in there that way. But I do believe that most times that they're actually going from, say, the United States into the area of Asia down there where we've been lately. I think most of the times they fly commercially. It's a commercial airplane, which is on loan to the military there for charter work.
I see.
So they sit in regular airline seats for that. When you see them all lined up there in those, in that position you're talking about with all their gear and everything else, I don't think that's a photo op per se, but it's not like they're going on a 8-hour, 10-hour, 12-hour flight.
Right.
That just wouldn't be comfortable. That wouldn't make it.
Yeah. I know some of those flights we would fly across across the United States, and I remember one time it was like a 124. And I remember I had the worst earache. I don't know if they weren't pressurized or what made that happen, but that was uncomfortable sitting in those things. It's not like sitting in an airline
and I would
seat.
imagine the 124 coast to coast is probably an 8-hour trip, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it seemed like
Where
it.
nowadays, jet will usually make it coast to coast in 5 hours.
Right. Well, I just want to thank you for your service, Dan.
You're too, Bob.
Okay, well.
You spent your time.
Yeah, I took my time. But anyway, that concludes our time on Valley to Vietnam. I'd like to thank Dan and say welcome home to him and all of our vets. For Valley to Vietnam producer Jerry Ward and director James Scott, I'm Bob Tribe, and say see you next time.